What's up, everybody? Superworks fan here from Mustang Weekly Update number 23 on this Friday. So, what's new with the Mustang? Well, if you're listening closely, you can hear the blow-off valve adapter that I installed this past week. And Boomba Racing was very nice and sent me one of their blow-off valve adapters. And I have a full install and review video of it coming either Saturday or Sunday of this week. And you'll hear all my thoughts in that video. So this is kind of a little bit of a teaser for it, I suppose. But my feelings are mixed on it so far. I mean, I like it. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of my Legacy GT that used to have a blow-off valve. But then again, when I had that one on that car, I was a teenager, and 5 years later here, I don't know how I feel about it. My fiance isn't a huge fan of it either, and she rides in this car a lot as well, so her point is definitely valid, and I value her opinion. But I mean, if I really liked it, I could leave it on, but I'm not totally sold on it, mainly because this one blows off very early. In the Legacy, you had to kind of be under some pretty heavy boost for it to blow off, otherwise it would just recirculate. It was a 50-50 recirculating blow-off valve, whereas this one is full atmospheric. Every time the car vents, it goes straight to the atmosphere. So even if I'm sneaking out of my neighborhood, early in the morning going to work or whatever, you hear these hisses, and if it kind of blew off later, I think I'd like it more. I'm not totally sold on it, and I'll probably be taking it off. I don't think I'm going to leave it on, but I'll definitely have a lot of sound clips and stuff in the review video of it that I post up. Part of me just thinks it's a little much, though, but yeah, I'll have to see. But anyway, I'll send it back to me at the news desk for this week's news. Right, for this week's news. The first thing is Volkswagen revealed the new Transporter microbus, I guess you could call it. And they have it pictured next to the old one. And very cool. You can actually get this two-tone paint scheme for the new model year, which is pretty awesome. I feel like two-tone paint totally needs to come back. That would be awesome. It looks great on that van, by the way. Sadly, of course, we don't get the Transporter here in America. This is a Germany and Europe only van, and they have no plans of bringing it here, which is kind of sad, because I think that would really be good to compete against the Ford Transit vans and all that kind of stuff that we have running around, because it gets pretty good fuel economy, all that good stuff, but nevertheless, they have no plans to bring it here. Next is the Shanghai Motor Show is coming up soon, and so there's some concepts that are being leaked out and teased, and one of them is Audi fully revealed the Prologue all-road concept. So, they're doing all these different Prologue concepts to show their new design language that is coming, and of course they applied it to the all-road here, and it's quite large, and this thing they said is about as big as an Audi A8 as far as the wheelbase is concerned, and it's packing a 738 horsepower engine, 664 pounds-feet of torque. Again, this is just a concept car, but this baby does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, and so that's done with a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine, plus an electric motor, and so, a hybrid powertrain here. Pretty wild thing. We'll see how much of that actually makes it a production, but very cool to see that. And some news from Brabus. They're the tuner, of course, that does the luxury cars. They have this new one called the Brabus StarTech, which is a Range Rover that they went and hacked off the hatch and turned it into a pickup truck. Of course, they gave it their usual tuner treatment with wheels and wide body kit and crazy fins there in the doors and whatnot. And yeah, so how do you feel about that? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I think standard Range Rover is just fine. But very cool to see that you can now make it a pickup truck if you want. Next, more of these Shanghai teasers. The next is the Buick Verano was teased, and all we can see here is the rear quarter shot and the taillight there. And it looks very beautiful, actually. I really like those body lines there in the doors and quarter panel. It's very beautiful looking, and looking forward to seeing more of it whenever they fully reveal it. And another Buick story that came out this past week is that the actual General Motors product chief, Mark Russ, they were talking with him about Buick bringing the beautiful Avenir that we saw at Detroit this year, about bringing that to production. And they're saying that something like this could happen, because this was based on the Cadillac CT6 roughly, that same kind of wheelbase, and the CT6 will be coming out very soon, of course. And so this, people were saying, well, what about this? And there's an interesting thing that I hadn't thought about, and that is that Buick sells way more in China than Cadillac. I think they said in this article here that they sell like 12 Buicks for every one Cadillac. So Buick, I mean, that's the main reason Buick's even still around, is because of China and how huge of a hit Buick is over there. And so they're thinking that, I don't know if it would even come to America, but doing a full-size Buick for China absolutely makes sense. They love long wheelbase cars, and they love Buick. So I feel like this is a no-brainer, if for no other reason, to make it for the Chinese market. But of course, if you're going to make it for the Chinese market, just make it so that it can also be brought over to America, because we'd love to see it as well. And so, I mean, who knows if it would actually look like the Avenir. Fingers crossed. We hope that it would, but you know, you never really know. But hopefully that actually happens. Now, they're not actually working on it yet, but I feel like it's only a matter of time. That seems to make total business sense to me from the limited information I have. But hopefully they do that. That would be amazing. Other GM news, Cadillac just released the new 2016 Cadillac ELR, which is more powerful and has been dropped by around $9,000 or $10,000. And it's a little confusing with because they're including the tax incentives and rebates that you get for buying a electric plug-in car and all that kind of stuff. But basically, the new MSRP is around $66,000. Which is still steep, but then again, this thing is much more improved, and I actually really like the way they have looked. I've always liked the way they looked. And now being cheaper makes it more compelling. Also, it's faster. So for the enthusiast, they actually have a performance package available that has bigger wheels, and it has Brembo brake calipers up front. It's an actual performance vehicle. But anyway, as far as the upgrades to the powertrain and things go, it's 25% boost in output from the hybrid part of the power plant there, and so it still has a 1.4 liter gas engine as well, and so 0 to 60 times 6.4 seconds. It'll go 39 miles on electric only, and so it's pretty cool stuff. And of course, like all the GM products, it comes with the onboard Wi-Fi and all that cool stuff, and very, very cool. I think, for those that don't want a Chevy Volt, but they still want something similar, this is a whole lot more stylish, whole lot cooler. And now moving on to the Porsche and Volkswagen group. Porsche, the first story from them is they interviewed one of the main engineering, the head of powertrain development, Dr. Heinz Jacob Neusser, and anyway, they were interviewing him, and they're talking about the turbocharged Porsche 911s that will be coming, because as we know, all the 911s will receive turbos here for the second generation of the 991 generation, so the Mark II versions, and it's interesting because a lot of people are really worried about the sound being lost, because the flat six engine, naturally aspirated, sounds quite a bit different than the 911 turbo does, and so people that like that naturally aspirated 911 sound, they're worried they're going to miss that with the turbos now being on all the 911s eventually. And this guy says don't worry about the sound. He's like, the sound is still really good, but then he also said the sound in the 911 turbo is still really good, which is a subjective thing, but it definitely doesn't sound the same as the naturally aspirated one. So I don't know how much you can depend on that, but some of the other things he said is that it's still going to be a rev-happy engine and still have a high red line. He said that just because it's turbocharged doesn't mean that every engine has to be limited to 6,000 RPMs. He said, we'll have it be a high-revving engine. He said, now it doesn't make any sense to make it rev to 10,000 RPMs because that's overkill, but somewhere in the middle, doing a 7 or 8,000 RPM red line still with a turbo is feasible to them. And this is something that, we've also been, realizing with the new Ferrari 488 GTB, which, the previous, the 458 had 1,000 higher red line than the turbo version does now. They dropped it down because of the turbos, and you're losing that high revving nature. But they're saying that these 911 engines will still be high revving. We will see. And in other Porsche news, they said that they're considering a Boxster Spyder GT4 because, of course, we have the Cayman GT4, but there's no Boxster variant yet. Normally, the Boxster and Cayman follow each other pretty closely with trim levels, and the Spyder is very cool, but for people that want to go the next step further, and at this point would probably have a $100,000 Boxster, that is something they're considering making. So I guess we'll see how well the Spyder sells, and then if they sell those pretty well, then they'll go on to the GT4. The Spyder already being like 82 grand though, before you add air conditioning and a radio as options. Just a little crazy, but who knows? Maybe they'll make it. The more performance Porsches out there, the better off the world is anyway, regardless of who buys them. So exciting to see that. One thing that's also very cool looking, but will never see the road or anything like that, let alone even production, is the Volkswagen Gran Turismo GTI Supersport concept, which is strictly for the Gran Turismo 6 video game, and looks cool, looks awesome, but I mean, it's only going to be real in your dreams because they're not making it, of course, and so if you have Gran Turismo 6, you can drive that. Otherwise, you will never drive it, sadly. Next is, there's an interesting thing this week from Volvo. Volvo decided to make a super luxurious version of the new XC90 called the XC90 Excellence, which will be coming in to the Shanghai Motor Show as well. And this is like a Maybach rivaling interior. I mean, obviously the Maybach's probably going to be a little bit nicer. Who knows how much this is going to cost, but it still looks very luxurious. Has the nice champagne cooler in the back, the TVs, lots of legroom, all that fun stuff. No price announced yet. Be interesting to see. But they said that this is actually going to be coming to worldwide. It's not just for China or anything. So we will be seeing those eventually. And now for some spy shots of stuff that's been spied running around this past week. The first is the Hyundai Santa Fe is getting a facelift, and it's heavily camouflaged here, so we can see very, very little. And they also managed to snap a picture of the interior, which is updated as well. And I was scrolling through these pictures and I said, holy crap, that's a manual transmission. And as far as I know, they don't make a manual transmission Santa Fe currently, but this one has a manual. I'm not sure why, but it does. So maybe they're planning on offering a manual on the Santa Fe, which seems a little bit odd to me, but hey, the more manuals the better, so if that's the case, cool. Another car that's getting a facelift is the Ford Fusion for 2017. They're planning on giving it a facelift here, and again, heavily camouflaged, so we can't really see much, but as you can tell, it's not going to be a wild redesign. Obviously, the sides and the hood and all that kind of stuff is still very much the same, if not identical to the current car. Just have the probably more aggressive headlights and different grille, maybe slightly newer taillights in the back that you know, look nice from the little bit we can see, and that's probably going to be the extent of the upgrades. I've heard rumors of there being a high-performance version of the Fusion coming as well. I don't know if that'll also be 2017 model year or when that will be coming, but that is also something I've heard, possibly it getting the Focus RS engine. We'll see about that, but I think this is clearly just the standard one, is wearing the regular, normal, skinny wheels and tires and whatnot. But hopefully, maybe we'll see some mules of a higher performance one running around soon. Another vehicle that was out spied running around that's getting updates is the Chevy Silverado, which has heavy camouflage on the front here, but it's still going to stick to, I think, pretty similar styling as it has currently, just a little probably light refresh here. And there's also rumors of it having some more aluminum components to follow the F-150, although considering how the F-150 is a little bit struggling because of all the aluminum it has, that maybe Chevrolet will, you know, keep their distance from that. I'm not sure. That's just a rumor. But you can obviously see that it is definitely getting a restyling here. Another car, a totally new car, not a facelift. The Jaguar FPace, which is their new SUV, has been lapping the Nürburgring, which is a good place to take your SUV if you want to performance tune it. And that's exciting to, you know, see. Obviously, it's fully camouflaged because we don't know what the actual production version will look like. We've seen the concept, and that's very close to production probably, but they have it fully camouflaged up here. I'm hoping that it's just as awesome as the concept looks. Last spy shots this week. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class Cabriolet continues to be out spied driving around, and looks good. Looks exactly how you would expect a convertible C-Class to look. And lastly, Lamborghini. Someone was asking the CEO of Lamborghini, Stefan Winkelmann, about whether there's any possibilities of a cheaper Lamborghini coming out, because you know, there was rumors about Ferrari making a cheaper car, which aren't true, and I think this is all spurred by McLaren's move with the 570S, and everyone's like, well, what about everyone else? Is everyone else going to compete? Because right now the only competition is the Audi R8 and the, of course, 911 turbos, that kind of stuff, GTR, whatever. But Lamborghini said they're not doing a sub-Huracan, which makes, I mean, that makes total sense to me, because I think the wait list for Huracan is currently a mile long anyway, so I feel like they're not having any trouble selling them. There's no need for a cheaper Lamborghini, obviously. And I think that it's important to remember that Lamborghini and Audi are cousins in the same company, and they're both the same car. They're just, obviously there's some tweaks. They're not identical or anything, but the Audi R8 and the Huracan are both based on the same platform. So if you want a cheaper Huracan, just go and buy one of the Audi R8s. And they both have V10 engines now too, so it'll sound like the Huracan and everything. So, you know, can't go wrong with an Audi R8, even though it's not quite as aggressive as the Huracan. I know some people would love the more aggressive Lamborghini styling. Lamborghini says they have no plans to do a cheaper car at this point. So yeah, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So send it back to me in the car. Alright, so I'll leave you guys with a nice little acceleration here, like I always do. It's wet, so we got some wheel spin, and now it grips. And you can hear that blow off valve slightly. And it's not super loud. That's the one thing that's redeeming about it. I thought it was going to be really loud, but it's not. It's actually fairly subdued, but, you know, especially with the windows down and stuff. I mean, you do hear it. So I don't know. Well, the jury is still out. You'll have to watch next week's weekly update and see what I ended up doing. But I'm kind of undecided. So definitely let me know what you think about it. Like I said, wait for the review video on Saturday or Sunday, and you'll be able to hear a lot more about it and see how I installed it and stuff. But and it also does that. It like vents under acceleration sometimes too. And the Ford system does that. That's not like a malfunction. That's just what it does. Normally that would just recirculate, but in this car it vents. It's definitely interesting. Definitely different than the Subaru blow-off valves that I'm used to. At this point in my life, I kind of like to fly under the radar. I don't like having a very shouty car, really. I mean, I do want to put an exhaust on this, but I feel like that gives you, you know, a good sound. This is almost just like an attention seeker, like it's just I'm attracting attention with my psh sound that causes everyone to snap their necks and say, what is going on? So I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.